Okay, so CPU time. What we've got here is an AMD 9590, so this is AMD's flagship CPU. This monster runs at 4.7 GHz stock. It boosts up to 5 GHz, and you can overclock it even further. So we're going to drop this into place. We've got an arrow on here somewhere. The arrow is there. Let's just turn that around, and that just drops into there like that. Just give that a quick wiggle just to make sure it's seated nicely, and just close the locking lever. Right, our Corsair H100 water cooler is actually going to be using the stock AMD backplate. So I've just removed the front mount points for a fan cooler, and we're now just screwing the backplate in with the Corsair standoffs. Now these are a bit misleading because they're actually coarse on one side and fine on the other. And we want the coarse threads going in. That's the one that's wrong. Now to fit the water cooling radiator to the top, we need access to behind this vent, which comes off with a thumb screw at the back here. So we'll just take that off, and then that should give us full access into the top of the case. Like that. And now what I can do is I can very carefully feed this round in there, being careful not to bend the fins on the radiator here, and just bring that up like that. I'm just going to hold that in one place while I get some screws in. Just put one in each corner for now, just to get the basic position. Good, right, now I don't have to hold that anymore. That's just free to move about slightly so we can readjust it. Now, we're going to lay this back down and get the head of the cooler onto the CPU. Right, so back in the interior now, I've fitted the AMD mounting bracket to the business end of the cooler, and now I need to very carefully just bend these hoses round so it's sitting nicely without putting too much strain on it. Now, I need to consider the possibility of turning the radiator round. However, I think these hoses are happy to bend like that. Let's just check that. The only problem is we're right up against this cooling fan, which we might have to do something about. Now if we turn the radiator around, that's only going to put these things closer, so that's as good as it's going to get. However, it's happy to bend like that, so let's go for it. Just going to rest that over the top. So let's just get a couple of thumb screws on that loosely, just to hold it in place. And then we'll just make sure that this is comfortable and it's not all too strained and under stress, because that's not what we want. Because water cooling under stress leads to leaks. Right, so I'm just going to very gently just flex these hoses slightly and just make sure they're sitting as comfortably as they can be. That's fine. Right, let's screw these down. There we go, that's solidly in place. Now that fan has just been blocked slightly by those hoses, so I'm just going to see if I can do something about that. Right, the way I'm actually going to solve this problem is I'm just going to take this fan out. Now, removing fans obviously seems like a bit of a daft way to solve this issue, but the thing is we've got two big 120mm fans going in at the top here. Exhaust fans are not a problem in this computer, so I'm literally just going to take this fella out. There we go. That makes those hoses much happier. It frees up a lot of space around the back here. Okay, Now the main pump gets its power from the CPU fan header. Wow, like that. And then this lead here will power the two PWM fans for the radiator. I'm just bending these cables around just so they're tucking straight out of sight, and then we'll have all of that out of sight behind the fans. Now I can now see that I should have fitted these fans before I fitted the radiator. However, I've got just enough space to get some of my narrower screwdrivers into position. There we go. If I was particularly anal, I could route these cables underneath the bracket. However, I don't want to take this off. That is one water cooler fitted. Now we've just got to put some more screws in on the top and we're there. Right, I guess I'll fit all these screws. No, actually I'm not going to fit those ones, just because the washers fit just nicely there. Alright, tweak. One radiator. Okay, so we've got a CPU cooler, we've got CPU fans, we've got power to the fans, we've got power to the CPU, we've got power to the motherboard, we've got USB, we've got more USB, and we've got front audio. So now I think it is about time that we dropped the RAM and the graphics card into this thing. So let's start with the RAM because that takes 2 minutes. I've got some Kingston Fury X here, 1600 megahertz DDR3. This is all you need. You can buy expensive RAM, and if you're really chasing numbers, you can overclock the nuts off of it. However, the reality is no one really needs to overclock their memory. I do not believe it makes any difference in the game where it counts. So I save my money and I put in decent premium brand stuff that's not going to melt if you have a little bit of fun with your CPU, and that will do you nicely. So drop that into slots 1 and 3. Memory fitted, job done. Right, next we're going to have a look at the front cooling. Right, the front fan on this is a big 250mm, so we're not going to need to put that 120 back in. That's going to be fine on its own. So we'll just find the cables for this. There we go. Right, we don't want to use the 4-pin adapter. We're going to plug this straight into the motherboard. This means we can use the motherboard's built-in fan controller just to keep that spinning nice and slow, and slow fans mean quiet performance. Cooling shouldn't be a big deal in this computer because we've got that big water cooler taking care of the CPU, which is going to be the only major heat source in here. We'll have the graphics card as well, but obviously that's going to take care of itself as well. So let's just drop that into sysfan 1. Tap that in there. Now comes the party piece of any gaming rig, the graphics card. Alright, we are fitting a Zotac NVIDIA GTX 970. I like these Zotac cards, they're fantastic value for money. They really make the high-end chips affordable, and they're in a really nice package as well. It used to be that if you buy a cheap graphics card, it will be some weird brand that you've never seen and have dodgy artwork all over it. But these Zotac cards, they just look fantastic. GTX 970 in such a compact package. It's brilliant. Right, now where are we going to put this fella? Right, there's no reason why we can't put this right at the top. I often mount my graphics cards low down, just for the sake of distribution inside the computer. But based on this motherboard and this case, the top PCI slot is actually bang in the middle of the case, and that just gives all this room around the graphics card. So we're going to put him in there. The only disadvantage I can see of this card is that it's twin 6-pin. And I can't help but think that on a package this small they probably could have gotten away with a single 8-pin, because it just means that I'm going to have to run an extra cable from the power supply for this, which is kind of annoying, but whatever, that's not the worst thing that can happen. Right, so graphics card wise, we're going to bring that up to another slot and we need to run another one out. So I'm just going to raid the box for another wire. Right, let's go upright for this. Right, so this fella's going to plug in down here somewhere. I'm going to put that through the other side first. Let's go in through that. Go for a low connector just to make the top ones more accessible later on if needed. And I'm going to redirect this through one notch upwards. Alright, and we just need to try and bend these wires around just so they are as low profile as possible without being under strain. And then those will be tied together in a nice little bundle like that. Just bend him around just so he's out of sight. One graphics card. Right, storage. Right, this computer is going to have 2 points of storage. We've got a 4TB mechanical hard drive and a 256GB SSD. We're going to break open the SSD first, so I can find out the best way in. Only SSD you should be buying right now, Samsung Evo 850. These things are highly affordable and they're one of the quickest SSDs money can buy right now. Not to be of course confused with enterprise class SSDs, those are slightly different. Okay, so I'm going to mount the SSD low down here and then we'll be able to put it on the same power cable as the hard drive, which will probably go about there. So let's take this out and see how this fits. Now because I'm a tidy ponce, I'm arranging it so the connector is at the back, which just keeps that connector out of sight and makes it look even prettier. Now, if I can work out how to use this adapter, that would be awesome as well. Oh, I see. Right, okay, so these fold down, squeeze it together, and that sits like that, and then I can put some screws in there. It's always slightly annoying when you see a toolless case that still requires tools to fit. I'm not entirely sure exactly how to solve some of these problems, but the problem is I still need screwdrivers to build this computer, and I would very much like someone to create a design that is truly toolless. Because we're so close, but if you need a screwdriver to build the computer, you may as well have screws for everything. Because for example, I've just had to screw this into here, so I may as well have just screwed it directly into the case. Don't know, just my opinion. Now, the familiar shape of the desktop hard drive is a big heavy 4TB. Right, and that's going to sit in like that. There we go, now that's a toolless design. Okay, right, now we're going to turn this up on its side again so we can get those wired up. One power cable going through the bottom here. That's going to plug in along the top. And then that one is going to go down here. And then that or just bend out of sight there. Right, all of these can actually start looking to move in this direction, and that's all just going to bend around that way and just fan out across the back of the case. And I'm just going to use some of these spare cable ties to hold all this together until I've locked it in place with some zip ties. There we go. I'll come back to that later. I've got one down there, and because serial ATA cables are flat, you want to try and put loops and spirals in these to make them tidy nicely, which just avoids unpleasant bends. Now this one, because it's not a 90-degree connector, that can just go straight through. There we go. And 2. Okay, so that's all of our components in the case now. So the next thing I want to do now is just sort out this bundle of cables down here, because it's all a little bit all over the place, and I just want that to look neater. And then we'll be ready to actually start putting side panels on and stuff like that. Right, let's just see what we can do with this. This is mainly just a matter of reordering these cables as they come out the other side. Just going to adjust these now, just to unwind these. Right, it's hard to explain exactly what I'm doing here, but you can see my objective is I'm just very slowly reordering these cables so we've got nice flat channels going through the back instead of that twisted jumble that we had before. Right, that's that done. Now let's get the other side. Right, now this is always a tricky part. This is usually where you bury most of your sins when building a computer. So I'm just going to gently fold all of these back. That's our separate Corsair link cable. We'll leave that as it is. And these are all the front panel connectors. So I'm just going to zip tie these together. And I'm just going to adjust the cables so they're just all of the same flowing length, so this doesn't bulge too much. Alright, this can come out now. And I'm just going to keep folding these back. Just keep tracing everything back and keeping it together for as long as possible. And then that will just bend around like that. And those will just push back flat when we put the side panel on. And that's all we need to do. Now I could zip tie all these down to the back of the motherboard. And that would look neat, but it also means the moment you have to change anything, you're just going to have to cut that all out anyway. So I tend to leave these flat because once the panel's on, you can't see any of this. And it just means that if anything needs to be adjusted, you can make minor adjustments without having to redo all of the cable tightening again. So that's that. Right, let's put a back panel on that. This back panel actually has a bulge in it, which will accommodate more cables. So it's going to resist me slightly just as I push some of those cables in. Right, let's just see how that feels. There we go. That's not resisting too much, it's just a matter of just pushing back until everything lines up. They would, wouldn't they? Bloody cellophane on both sides. Somewhere in the world, someone hasn't taken off the inside cellophane. And that annoys me. Okay, and we are complete. So we're going to start this up and start installing Windows on it, and we will have a really nice gaming rig. Alright, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye for now.